all elite. Because I can't even call it wrestling anymore. Look at this clown. Look at this clown.
You were there, Tommy.
He looks. I call him a pencil neck. Look, his head and hair look like an eraser. I'm like, he literally looks like a pencil. And Tony, if your neck hurts that bad, why are you turning your head, you jackass? Oh my god.
I can cut a promo, baby. I can sit right there if you want a Dusty Rhodes promo. That's right, Daddy. I've wined and dined with kings and queens. I feasted on alley and pork and beans, Daddy, if you will. I can do an ultimate.
Ric Flair.
Woo! A little bit of flair. Look at that, man.
10 pounds of gold, baby.
Look at that belt, bro. Look at that robe, more importantly. Now that's a robe.
Yeah. Dave LaGreca, that is a robe.
Yes.
Not that crap that you have on. That
Fuck
is
Dave
a
LaGreca.
robe. Thank you.
Yes.
We're back.
Yes. Wonderful.
It feels great to finally be back after an obnoxiously long hiatus that we couldn't control. Rebel Brian, how has your 3 weeks been since we last came on the air?
Busy. I have been busier than any 80s wrestler on steroids. I mean, it has been absolutely nuts, but just like you said, it is great to be back right here on the Yankee Rebel Wrestlecast. And we have got a lot to talk about and a lot of awesome experiences over the course of the last week. And we are, again, back in the saddle again, as Aerosmith would say.
Absolutely. It has been busy. It's been crazy. A lot of shit's gone on since we last came on, and we're going to break it down. But first, Brian, you were at TNA Emergence.
I was at TNA Emergence, and I must say that possibly the greatest wrestling experience I have had in quite some time, if not the greatest wrestling experience. Not only was the pay-per-view great, but as you can tell if you're watching live on YouTube and Twitch, got to meet the man Joe Hendry himself, which was absolutely killer.
And guys, if you're watching on stream, know that is not Brian twice. That is Brian and the infamous bearded dog, who this is the only mention I'll make of him, unless he decides to talk more shit.
Yes.
But, yes, I and probably all of us are jealous that you got to meet the one and only Joe Hendry.
Yes.
And I mean, he commented on your sign, didn't he, on X?
He did on X, and recognized the sign when he come out, which was crazy. The match came out. He came over and high-fived my brother and I, and the cool part is, which let me show you this as well. Even yours truly even got on live pay-per-view with the sign, and that of course is me holding the sign, and that is directly off the pay-per-view. So I'm pretty pumped that I made it on television, which we were front row, and we still had a great time. We were on TV a bunch, but it was, again, the Section 800. I got to give a shout out to Section 800 at the Louisville Emergence pay-per-view, because they were absolutely the most rowdy section I have ever been a part of at a wrestling show.
And that's what you want. You want just to, especially paying that kind of money, you want to feel it. You want to be just encapsulated by all that energy. And it seemed from when I watched that it was just off the hook, just electric.
It was electric, and other than the first 30 minutes of the 1 hour Iron Man match between Nick Nemeth and Josh Alexander, which we made our time go by good by being obnoxious and breaking out some pretty good chants and everything. But the match of the night, definitely, other than the X Division Championship, which big shout out to Wentz for winning the X Division Championship. That match was really cool. And I've missed seeing X Division Championship matches where they do the Ultimate X and they have to basically hang from the X that is high above the ring and grab the title, which is a lot different than a Money in the Bank match, because these guys basically were scaling this wired X across the top of the ring. But I love the match between the System and Mike Santana, the Hardys, and Joe Hendry. It was absolutely one of the most fun matches I've ever been a part of, and just the heckling that we did to the System was bar none some of the greatest that I've been a part of at any wrestling show, and I've been going to wrestling shows for a long time. Yes, I got to give a shout out to my wife, because she did make my signs, and
Another amazing work.
another amazing work. My wife is the craftiest person I know, and she texted me immediately and was like, my sign just got on television, and of course all you can see is my big orange glasses, so it's hard not to recognize that it's me. But again, it was such a cool experience, and I hope that they come back, because I will be doing every TNA show that comes to the state of Kentucky.
I mean, I can't really follow that. That was awesome, dude.
But
I wonder, do you think it's possible that we see the first ever double champion with WWE and another promotion, with, like, say maybe Joe Hendry being the TNA champion and NXT champion?
I thought it was going to happen last night, but we'll get into that. Somebody's like, "Can you show the picture of Joe Hendry again?" And I'll do that. For people are texting me and everything. I can't believe it. But again, for those of you, we did get to meet Joe Hendry at Emergence, and the guy is nice as he is on television. Took about 10 minutes with us and just chatted with us and signed a 8x10 and just took pictures with us and everything. So he was super cool. I mean, just it's like meeting Superman almost, because of how hyped this guy is right now, and just how he is just this, like, I almost want to say he's like a Hogan almost, because when he comes in, it's like you recognize that theme song,
Mm-hmm.
you know what he's going to do, and just the funny part is that the entrance included the Hardys at Emergence, and it would start with "I Believe in Joe Hendry," and then it went to "I Believe in the Hardys," and they all did the turnaround as well, and it's so funny. So
And uh, just to me, what really stands out is, as big as Joe Hendry is, that he took the time to, like your post on X, and then even say he recognized it and was just
yeah,
chatting you guys up. It's like not many guys would do that or be that accommodating and nice, but the fact that he, like, saw your sign, recognized it, acknowledged it, was just pretty cool.
he acknowledges Tribal Chief. So, but it was great, and if those of you that were able to go, I know our friend of the show, Aaron Rose, was there, and just a great atmosphere. I mean, I give the pay-per-view a 10 out of 10, just because I was there and felt the energy and felt the matches were just top notch, and even the women's matches were great. I mean, which, those I'm a big Ash by Elegance fan. I love Dana Brooke. and really upset she still hasn't won that title yet. But I get it; it's hard to beat the Juggernaut. And but the 6 woman tag was actually a really good match, and then the last 30 minutes of the hour Iron Man match between Nemeth and Alexander was awesome. I mean, just so many finisher after finisher, and then Nemeth wins by hitting Josh Alexander with his finisher. So it finished by one fall. So it's pretty awesome.
Are you sure you don't want to go Meltzer and give it like an 11 or 12 out of 10 and just
No,
break
I'm
the
not going to go
scale? Just want
Meltzer.
to.
We after the X Division match, which was unbelievable, it got real quiet, and I screamed Meltzer would give this match a 12 out of 10, and the crowd just started cracking up, and and then somebody goes, "Screw Dave Meltzer," and it was hilarious, man. I mean, every crack that we could do, it was done that night.
I
It was
mean that makes me think that we need to make a shirt that says "Screw Dave Meltzer" and on the back like a negative 2 star out of 5 and just break the scale backwards. I don't know.
oh gosh. But yeah, just a great experience, and I should have went the next night for Impact, but I had too much going on. I couldn't go back to Impact.
That would have been an insane weekend if you were able to go to
Yes,
Virgins and then right to Impact. That would have been amazing.
I had husband duties. I couldn't do anything else.
I know. But next on the docket here, we're going to talk about the Bash at Berlin, which
Yes,
I thought top to bottom was a great PLE. Um, for me, the highlight of that night, I have a 1A, 1B. I have Gunther and Randy. They put on a classic. It
oh, it
was
was
it
a
was
banger.
such a great match, which I'll talk about in a minute. But the one I really want to talk about first is Punk and McIntyre. Man,
Oh man,
they put on a banger. I mean, that's the way that match finished with Punk just hitting a GTS after every pad he hit on McIntyre was an emphatic victory, and you could tell the crowd was obviously so much behind him, and you could almost feel like that's kind of the end of their rivalry. I mean,
yeah,
Punk put that stamp on it. He got his bracelet back, but one makes you think that the past PLE we had, Drew thought it was over. After this one, Punk said it's over. You have bad blood. So my question is, maybe Hell in a Cell? I don't know. Something gimmicky like that to really just hit the trifecta and finish it. What do you think?
it's possible. I mean, I would like to see after this is all done, Punk to now get in the running for a title, because Punk is such a great champion. I would like this rivalry to end on a good note, and I think that Bash at Berlin was a good final stepping stone for that rivalry to end. But it depends if the crowd still wants it, and if they want it, then I'm pretty sure it's what Triple H is going to do. We'll find out more about it tonight, I'm sure,
Yeah.
if it's going to end or if it's going to continue.
Yeah. What besides the world title match, would you say that Punk Drew was probably the match of the night, or did you have another one that kind of piqued your interest?
It was. I mean, a lot of people, which I was kind of shocked that they put Cody and KO on first, but that match to me should have never been on the PLE, just because you saw that Cody hurt his knee, and Owens was like, oh, should I affect his knee and all this. I mean, it was a good story, but there wasn't enough build up in this match, and it didn't make any relevance to me, because you're like two friends going at it for the title. It just goes to show that there's not enough people to face Cody right now.
Yeah, and and that to me is puzzling because why would you let Lashley go? Because he was on
True.
SmackDown and he was a pretty big contender. He's what, a 3 or 4 time world champion at this point. He's a big name, an even bigger human. And you think that you would have kept him, but yeah, until they can kind of reshift the balance of power here and do that, it's gonna be kind of a easy breeze for Cody. And I figured, given the 2 years it took for him to get this belt, that they would have a more in-depth story for him because they honestly don't. And the stories have been, I feel like, forced and they've been rushed and they haven't been built up properly, like you mentioned, like with AJ Styles. It made kind of no sense because you just up into, oh yeah, AJ's now mad at him and this, that, and the other thing. It just doesn't make sense. And Kevin, they could have done a good story with it, but you kind of just put it together last second.
Well,
And
what happened with the bloodline? I mean, these two guys were deep into facing the bloodline and everything, and then all of a sudden you make them go against each other. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
yeah, and the whole thing with like Cody, like, no, I want you to be it. No, I don't deserve it. No, come on, I want you to be it. No, I don't want to do it. It, it's like we're on a playground fighting over. Hey, I want to share my toy with you. No, I don't
Yeah,
want it. No, come on, I want to. Like, no, I don't want it. It it just didn't make much sense to me. Like Randy and Gunther, that's that's a good story. That made
yeah,
sense. I was shocked that they did it because of Randy being on SmackDown, but it made sense.
yeah.
There was the built-in story of Gunther technically didn't beat Randy, so that made sense. The whole, I mean, I understand if you want to get Kevin to be heel again because that's when he was the hottest. But the way you're trying to go about it to me doesn't make much sense. Like you said, it
No,
just feels rushed. And again, just goes to show you like SmackDown's being a little mismanaged compared to Raw because Raw's in a pretty good spot.
yeah, and you can tell we're getting into the heated PLE time of the year because I felt it was a good time to give Bianca and Jade the women's tag team titles back. Not to say that Alba Fire couldn't maintain that. I mean, it's you know I don't know. I mean, the, are they big sales? They were decent champions,
I
but
mean, they're not going to make you the money like Jade and Bianca just because they're
no,
way more well known. I mean, Isla Dawn, Alba Fire, they're great in the ring. I mean, before she was Alba Fire, she was Kaylee Ray, and she was a dominant NXT UK Women's Champion.
yes,
Like, let's not forget that she's a great wrestler, but she's not known on that global scale like Bianca and Jade are. So, the fact that they won the belts from them, I would think would give them a little more comeuppance. But I mean, when you're with Bianca, who's a 2 or 3 time women's champion and
yeah,
kind of the poster child for the women's division, and Jade, who is just she's Jade, she's a huge name.
yeah,
It's just kind of hard to put those two as the kind of the poster child for your women's tag team division. So I get it, but I'm just waiting for Jade and Bianca at Mania because that's what I think they're going to go towards at some point.
yeah. But do you have another tag team other than maybe Damage Control or somebody that can take that mantle a
Or
little
that
bit?
Sonya Deville's faction. I can't remember what
Yeah,
they're called, but I mean, just WWE's tag team landscape in general is kind of lackluster,
yeah,
in my opinion. Like women's and men's. Like I thought that there'd be more focus on the tag team division with Hunter in charge, and we haven't really seen that quite yet. So I'm a little puzzled as to why we haven't seen more legit tag teams, which I heard they may have signed the Motor City Machine Guns, so they'd be a huge ad if you could get them. I mean, whenever they decide to put the Usos back together, which is really puzzling because Roman's been out for what, 2 weeks now since he got attacked by the Bloodline. You haven't seen Jimmy. Jay's in the Intercontinental title tournament, so I'm just confused as to where they're going with all that because I don't see how you even have that feud without Jay involved.
Well, I did see Hikuleo did sign,
Yes, he
so
did. Yeah,
so
so
that
he would be one of their members on Roman's side if Jacob doesn't turn, which we haven't had a chance to talk about that yet either.
yeah.
Because you saw the look when he had to give up the tag team title for Bachaloa. It's he looked pissed. So like, is that the opening of, hey, we start to see maybe Jacob take that turnover? But I don't know. There's a lot of what if up in the air things going on right now that I'm just hoping we get some answers to.
I agree, but all in all, Bash in Berlin was a good pay per view. Probably a lot better pay per view than most of our overseas PLEs, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say this is up with the one I think they had in France.
Yeah,
Like that when Cody fought AJ. I thought that was a really good crowd. And the whole time they were just had chance. The whole time it was just fun to get into. So this one I think takes the cake, but I mean they've had some good overseas PLEs, and the way it's going I feel like there's going to be a lot more.
yeah, I agree. Which it's good. I mean, because a lot of these crowds are hot, so it's and they don't get a lot of American wrestling in their area anyway, so it's always going to be hot crowds.
Yeah, so where do we see with the graphic on the screen, where do we see Gunther and Randy Orton's futures heading? Where do you see them, on Raw here? Like where do you see like their next steps here?
Well, if we look at the KO and Cody match, Randy might get his shot next.
Well,
So
and that makes more sense because mentor to student. There's
yeah,
that long-term storytelling there that I could get behind. That's something you could almost ignite like that, and you wouldn't need to say, "Oh, they didn't build it up at all." Well, their story's been built up for years.
since Legacy,
Yeah. So
Gunther, I'm
Gunther,
not sure. It's going to be interesting unless Seth Rollins gets back in the mix and we start seeing a Seth and Gunther match, which we haven't really heard much from Seth Rollins recently, and so we'll see if that takes place. Or I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a toss up right now to see who could be the next person to face Gunther.
yeah, I was talking to my buddy Jake about this when we were watching Bash in Berlin, and he made the point and kind of like a question too, to where you ask yourself, you have Cody, who you expect to have a pretty good run given he beat our tribal chief Roman Reigns, the OTC. You have Gunther, who hasn't had a title reign that's been less than a year, 2 years. I mean, honestly, do you see in any way that Triple H brings back the Attitude Era way of the title? And what I mean by that is, like, nowadays people have had longer reigns. Do you see them kind of reverting back to like moderate to shorter reigns? Because if you think about it, in the modern day of WWE, you're not going to have anyone come close to the Flairs, the Triple H's, the John Cena's as far as world titles go. Because a lot of this, because I mean, Roman just had it for 4 years. So do you see a reversal back to that kind of booking, or do you just see these long term reigns being the norm?
I think we'll start seeing a little bit less time because let's understand it. Triple H was a part of an era that titles sometimes would change one or two times in a month.
Yeah.
You know, you would have Stone Cold as champion, The Rock. He'd face The Rock. He'd face Triple H, and there's a lot of title reigns. And I think for them to be successful with these changes to Netflix and SmackDown going to USA and NXT going to CW, you're going to start seeing that for them to be successful with it, you're going to have to start seeing more title changes on Raw and SmackDown. And then let's make the PLE a little more interesting with how they can maintain that. But I think that for them to be successful, it's going to have to we're going to have to start seeing those titles change a little bit more frequently.
I agree because, I mean, let's face it. If you have, Cody hold the title for a year or whatever, let's say you have Gunther have him hold it for 2 years, like you did the IC title. Eventually, at some point, you're going to have a lacking of contenders at some point. Because if you're not building people up the title, it's going to make more just kind of dog and pony show.
Yeah.
Because you have, all right, well, for 3 years, so who are we going to put against him? Like, he obviously needs to look dominant, but at some point, you're going to have him lose to kind of bring him a little back down to earth, because even, like you said, The Rock, Austin's, and Triple H's, they sometimes had less than a month reigns as champion just because of certain storylines. So, like you mentioned, with Netflix, in the expansion of the kind of content they can do and how graphic it can be with certain storylines, I think you'll see more of that Attitude Era-ish, because nothing's going to replace the Attitude, but you'll have that style of booking that'll build up more contenders to people like the Cenas and Flairs and Ortons and that, because right now, the way it's going, no one's going to come close.
Yeah. And other than Seth Rollins, is there really anybody on Raw that could pursue Gunther and take the title off of him? I mean, he just beat a 13-time world champion.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Braun Breaker's, he's the IC champion. He's not there yet, but he's getting there. He will be there at some point. Just looking at, I mean, you got Punk, you got McIntyre, but who do you throw where? Like, I mean, because McIntyre just lost. Do you throw him in the title picture? Do you throw Punk? Do you continue them? It's kind of up in the air. Seth would be interesting because he's been on hiatus since Bronson Reed tsunami'd him like a dozen times and
yeah,
whatnot. So that'd be interesting. And they've had some interaction before Mania, so it's not like they haven't met each other before or had any kind of interaction. Yeah. So
Robert made a good point. He said, unlike the Attitude Era, they had so many big kind and talent, and it made the changing belts easy.
Right, which again goes to the point of, you kind of have to shift the mentality over, because when you have Roman holding both belts for 4 years and then having to make a new one, I mean, you saw with Priest. Priest had a good title run, made him a little more legitimate of a superstar, and he dropped it to Gunther. So, like, something like that I could see it would make sense to be more of the norm than what we're seeing now. Because what we're seeing now, I don't think is sustainable.
I agree, and the last thing we need is a bunch of rematches between Damian and Gunther and all this stuff. I mean, we don't want to go that route because that'll get old and stale really, really quickly.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm fine with having, like a longer reign for a champion if it makes sense, but we should not get excessive with it, because I think it's going to affect the long-term, health of the title and the contenders for those titles, because then, you're going to have people who are going to leave, like Robert said, because they shouldn't be on trying to keep talent. Like, at some point, people are going to get sick of just being number one contender 6, 7 times and not getting over for just the
Yeah,
fact of, oh, we have to give Gunther a 3-year reign. And I love Gunther, but you can't keep having champions with these long reigns because it's going to affect the long term outcome of everything.
agreed. But all in all, what would you give Bash in Berlin out of 10?
I'd give it a 9. I thought it was really good. The Jade and Bianca match wasn't it didn't do much for me. I mean, those matches tend to be like hit and miss here and there. I still think Jade has some work to do as far as the WWE speed and lack thereof because it's compared to AEW, it's slow. It's
Yeah,
pretty slow. So I I I've seen some improvement, but I think she ultimately needs to keep working on it because she's, I mean, a great athlete. And she's still like, you got to remember, she's only been in the business like, what, 3 years
yeah,
or something like that. So I think in time having Bianca with her is going to help, but it just makes kind of matches like that not so thrilling for me. And I love Jade.
yeah. All right. Well, that takes us to NXT No Mercy, which I enjoyed a lot last night. It it was action packed, good matches down the card, good stories down the card, and then of course, I mean, how could you not be excited against Ego Ethan Page against Joe Hendry for the NXT Championship?
Right. And the debut of someone that I talked about in my rant a couple weeks
Yes,
back, the debut of Julia after Roxanne Perez beat Jada Parker. Julia had a face-to-face stare down with Roxanne Perez, essentially staking she's got next. So I can't wait for that. That's gonna be amazing. I was looking at Bleacher Report's kind of comments about that match in particular because it did involve Julia, and they put Roxanne Perez in the stratosphere of Asuka as the NXT Women's Title goes because, I mean, let's face it, Roxanne Perez been she's she's been dominant champion, and to have someone like Julia who's well known around the world and she just signed with NXT and her immediately going straight up to Roxanne Perez and towering over her, which is quite funny. I think it's going to be a great rivalry, um, and I think it's going to set the standard for WWE's women's division, not just NXT's.
yeah, I agree with that, and we still have a couple others that we're still waiting on that's going to be even just as great. But I feel like we talked about before the show. I think that now Roxanne Perez has that one dominant opponent that you're going to go into, and you're not going to say, "Well, Roxanne's going to win this match." You kind of going to scratch your head and go, "Can Julia do this?" And like you said before the show, is this going to be an instant impact?
Right, because I could see it going both ways. Because like we said, Roxanne Perez, when they had the draft, I think she's easily a top draft pick for whatever
Yeah,
brand decides to take her. Because I don't think she needs to prove anything more on NXT. She's already proven it. Um, so yeah, like, do we see kind of her start like the tail end of her reign going into the draft next year? It's possible. I could easily see them having Julia come in, almost kind of like Paige did when she had the NXT Women's Title and got brought up to Raw and beat AJ in her first match. Like I could easily see something like that happen and just send shockwaves through the women's division. I'm
yeah,
like, whoa, Julia just beat Roxanne Perez in record time, and like, how do we process that?
yeah. But
Because I
all
mean, no, go
go
ahead.
ahead. But all in all, I really think this was a good pay per view. It had some good stories, of course. Wesley and Wentz. You had a NXT guy against a TNA guy, and he gets the win over, kind of a little retribution for the betrayal from Wes Lee. You had just so many great matches. You had new tag team champions, Frazier and Axiom, defeating Chase U for the tag titles. And then you had a Ridge Holland heel turn after the end of the match, which kind of makes sense, but kind of doesn't, because I'm like, you just put him in Chase U and then he turns on him immediately. I was a little sus on that because, and I knew that Ridge Holland didn't fit in that Chase U mentality because he's, the breaker of necks. But too soon.
No,
And
fine.
and then of course Roxanne Perez and Jada Parker was a decent match. And then, of course, which we'll get into now, is the Ethan Page Joe Hendry match with Trick Williams as the special guest referee. Whoop that Trick. And I enjoyed this match. I didn't enjoy the ending, but I did enjoy the match.
Yeah, and I mean, I was kind of afraid going into the match that we would see something like this, just because Ethan Page just became world champion not too long ago, and you want to see him kind of establish himself, because I kind of see what I see in him. I kind of see a little bit of Bobby Roode in him. I think we talked about that before.
Yeah.
Just coming outside of WWE, coming here now and making a name for himself. Not to say Joe Hendry won't get that at some point, because he definitely will. But I just think Ethan Page needs a little more time with that belt. Same with Nick Nemeth. Like, he's so long overdue, but eventually Joe Hendry will get his due. And I do predict that at some time he will be TNA World Champion and NXT World Champion. The first ever to do so. I'm making that prediction right here, right now, because I believe, and YRW believes in Joe Hendry.
That's right. That's right. I would love to see it happen, and Nick Nemeth versus Joe Hendry would be a match for the books. I like his finisher, man. I like the standing ovation. I think it's a powerful finisher. I mean, it's almost like a rock bottom, but it's
kind of like a choke slam and a rock bottom all kind of combined in one.
Yeah. But of course, Ethan Page was coming in with some momentum until they brought Joe Hendry in. So do we see Joe Hendry off of NXT TV for a little bit?
Maybe. I mean, at that point, with Joe Hendry maybe gone for a little bit, do you put Trick Williams back in that title picture and,
I would think so. I mean, because he would definitely be the number one contender for the title right now.
And I mean, given he was just a special guest referee, I feel like it only makes sense you put him in there, and then maybe when Joe Hendry comes back, then maybe talk about putting the title on him, because, in the next couple months, you're going to get to November. It's going to be, War Games time for the main roster. So one would assume you might be able to put him on a big PLE for NXT, and maybe he comes home with a gold then.
Maybe. I mean, even Halloween Havoc, for that matter, you could possibly see it. But there has to be at some point. Is Joe going to continue to be that 2 company star, or is he going to focus on one at some point? But a lot of people are speculating he's going to be a WWE guy before it's over. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's only inevitable that whenever his contract ends up, that he's going to sign with WWE. It's just a matter of whenever that contract's up, because he'll still be able to go to TNA, but then he'll be probably where he more so wants to be anyway. And you're not going to have the he's a TNA guy. No, I'm a WWE guy now.
Yeah.
And like TNA is my second home, but this is where I'm here now. Like, I'm here. Because, I mean, everyone's goal is to make it to the big leagues.
Do we ever see a TNA crossover into the main roster? I mean,
I
we've seen it
think
already with Jordan Grace, but
so. I think that you could see that maybe next year
yeah,
because you just kind of officially made this happen a couple months back. If you get a good year under your belt and some change, I could see maybe next year having like a huge crossover with the main roster. I think that'd make more sense because right now you're kind of dipping your toes in the water with NXT, seeing how it's going. It's going really well. I could see definitely next year, especially with the whole Netflix thing, because that's the big thing.
yeah.
Netflix opens up a lot. Then I could see maybe more of a chance of having that happen.
Do we see Joe Hendry at the Royal Rumble?
If he doesn't, I will riot. If dude, do you realize how he'll get the biggest pop of the night? And he
Yeah,
probably won't win, but he'll get the biggest pop of the night. And you'll see everybody waving their hands from side to side.
yeah.
Oh my god, dude. I got goosebumps, dude, right now. You see that hair standing up? I got goosebumps right now thinking about it.
So all in all, I enjoyed No Mercy. I love to see NXT at a big arena, and it's just filled, and for them to be able to start doing those PLEs that way kind of gives those NXT stars a little bit more view of,
True.
hey, we're just not this lower company. We're right up there with Raw and SmackDown.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's about time that they get their due because I'm sick of people here and say, "Oh, it's NXT is just a glorified indie show." I'm like, no, it's not. It's like they may have a smaller regular venue. Sure, they may not go tour around the country, but it's because they're a developmental system.
Yeah,
Like they're not the main roster. They're a brand, yes, but they're not the main roster. So for you to, not you, but other people to compare that as such, I think is just disingenuous.
yeah, I agree. So that brings us to the preview for Raw tonight, which we are doesn't look like a bad show. I'm not gonna lie. It is. It doesn't look like a bad show. We'll start at the bottom here and work our way into it. We do have Dragunov, Dominic, and I think that's Dragon Lee.
Yeah, yeah, it is. You're like, I think there's so many different mass superstars nowadays. It's so hard to tell. But yes,
Oh
that
God!
is Dragon Lee.
And this has the opportunity to be a neat match. I mean, Dragunov is definitely, I'm sure, the favorite to win this match, but we always got to see Dominic on the outside. Is he going to lie, cheat, and steal to win that match tonight? So it's going to be a nice little three-way match, almost like a Gold Star Chili. He's got the three-way rolling.
Dude, I mean, I see this match being dominated by Dragunov, but Dom's got some momentum behind him, and I think he's going to sneak away with a victory here. Just because he's dealing with the Terror Twins and this Judgment Day 2.0, what's going on. I think it would make sense to elevate Dom at
Yeah,
this point and put him further in the IC title picture, though I fear if he gets too far because he might literally get broken in half.
the mustache and the mullet gets more epic every week, though.
It does. I mean, you talk to my fiance and she thinks it looks disgusting, but for others it may just do something for you. I don't know.
Oh God. Let's see what else we got for Raw tonight. Um, which I know that we talked about this match on the before we came on air, and there's going to be some changes to this match tonight.
Yeah,
Kaiser,
big,
Sheamus, and Bronson Reed.
yeah. As reported earlier, Big Bronson Reed has COVID.
He's got the COVID.
He's got the vid. So Adam Pearce said he's going to make a announcement tonight um, with who's going to be the replacement. I'm trying to think. Jey Uso already advanced, correct?
Yes.
He won his match. Okay, so we'll see who they throw in there. Either way, I have a feeling that regardless who they put in, I feel like Ludwig Kaiser is going to get the win in this match. Just because he's already beaten Sheamus a handful of times already, and I feel like they're giving him a push to kind of whenever they decide to bring Imperium back stable, Gunther and Kaiser, and it doesn't feel like Imperium to me, but I feel like to make them look stronger, Kaiser's got to get this win here because I mean it's highly possible and not out of the realm of opportunity that you have Gunther as world champion and Kaiser as IC title holder.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see that happening. Um, but yeah, I mean, either way, I think if they don't have Kaiser get the win, I feel like it's gonna suck.
It's a missed opportunity in my opinion, a missed opportunity for that to take place. So we will also tonight hear from the new tag team champions Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. So this should be interesting, and we'll see who's their next rivalry is going to be, which we may get that tonight. Who knows? I mean, that could be an open door
My
as
prediction is you're gonna see them come out. You're gonna have Damage Control, who we see on the screen, who's taking on the Unholy Union. I think that's what they're called. Unholy Alliance. I don't remember. I see them coming out, and I see Sonya Deville, Shayna, and Zoe Stark, their new faction, potentially coming out and just have like a number one contenders match or have a series of matches to determine that. Because it seems like having them on Raw now, one of the Raw teams is going to be that number one contender. So
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll find out soon who they're going to be facing. That Bad Blood.
I would like to see Damage Control, man. I don't know. I'm just a big Kairi Sane fan, so I'm just I'm kind of looking forward to that. I would rather it be Kairi Sane and Asuka, but it
Yeah,
is what it is at this point.
I forgot about the other group because Zelina's also with Katana Chance and Caden Carter, and they are
Yeah,
I think have like a storyline injury. So these matches that they have, they have um, Shayna Baszler versus Zelina Vega. I think from those matches you'll see whatever teams win move forward to have a number one contenders match for those tag team titles. Um, but the thing with Sonya Deville's stable is Shayna Baszler has lost her luster.
yeah,
Zoe Stark never really done much for me. To me, she seemed like just another kind of rough and tough chick.
yeah.
And then Sonya Deville just coming out of nowhere, and all of a sudden she's supposed to be the ringleader of these two. It just doesn't do much for me.
I'll agree with that, but everybody's got to have a place, and I think that stable wise, this is not a bad stable. It's just like you said, it's just a lot of lackluster, almost filler type situation, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So the other match we're looking at tonight, the continuing saga.
Oh God.
The continuing saga between Chad Gable and his new faction against Alpha Academy. But we get the girls. We get the girls going at it
I
tonight
just,
too. So I'm
I just don't for the life of me understand. The Alpha Academy was Chad Gable's name. You
Yeah.
hate the guy, so why are you keeping the name? To me, that makes no sense. Absolutely no sense, because he was the start of the Alpha Academy.
Yeah.
So to keep his name, to me, it doesn't make any sense at all. Not one. But again, you have this match essentially being the lead up to another Wyatt Six interaction, because the Wyatt Six are never advertised, but you know they're there, and
Oh
you know
yeah.
they're going after Gable and company. So it's like, to me, it's like, why are we playing this charade like the Wyatt Six aren't there? Like, at this point, this should be over with. Why are we
Yeah.
continuing this? Like, we all know it's Wyatt Six against Gable's group, but yet we still have to throw Alpha Academy in there just to keep them on television.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I get
Mid,
it. This is
mid.
it is mid, but you do have a story there. You do have a story. I don't know where it's going to go, but you do have a story there. But it has been ran into the ground so much. You now have crops coming up because
That's
you've
my
dug
point.
so deep.
That's my point. You have so many weeds coming out of the cracks in your driveway, and just trim them and seal it up. It should have
Yeah.
been done with a while ago.
Because it's
'Cause
like you started off with this Alpha Academy, Chad Gable's new faction, and then it took a right turn with the White Six, and now we're back here, and then we'll go back to the right again, and then it'll go back again, and you're like, where the hell are we going? Are we getting off the expressway, or are we staying on it?
Right. It doesn't make sense. And just to piggyback off the Wyatt Six, it doesn't make any sense that they're coming through the entrance ramp. Because of how they debuted, you would think they'd come from the crowd and kind of work their way down, kind of like Wyatt style, where they all came from different corners and just came in the ring. You had them demolish everyone backstage. Why are you now having them come through the curtain?
Yeah. It doesn't make much sense.
It doesn't. But then again, not everything's going to make sense 100% of the time. So
I agree with that. Now, my favorite part of the show, we're going into our rants. Do you want to go first?
yeah, I've been waiting for this for a couple weeks now. Now, most of you have probably noticed that we didn't talk about AEW at all tonight. And that wasn't on purpose. They just didn't have anything noteworthy to mention. But I was on Twitter X this other week, and there was a thread about AEW. And you know, we've talked numerous times on and off air about how AEW has gone completely opposite of where they started and what got them super popular.
Yeah.
So someone took the time to do research that I didn't have time to do and compiled a thread of promises that AEW made that they've now since gone back on. So I want to elaborate on this. So the tweet starts, when it was founded in 2019, AEW detailed its original vision of how it was going to do things differently from WWE. Within 5 short years, AEW has slowly gone back on these promises one by one. Starting with a ranking system where wins and losses matter. When AEW delivered the ranking system, it was quietly done away with in August of 2022, supposedly at the request of CM Punk. I put that in quotes because who knows. They were brought back in January of 2022, only to be discontinued then 3 months later. Which, again, the whole ranking system was cool. It was different. It was a different concept. It changed each week. You know what I mean? Oh, bearded Duff. I love him. I'll deal with you later. Anyway, Another promise AEW made is they wouldn't go after fans for posting clip of content on social media. Since then, they've started to deliver countless examples, most notably when AEW DM Sid Matthew early in the Botchamania channel got deleted. It took fan backlash for them to rescind their copyright strikes on this. Because they were like, oh yeah, we're never going to, go after fans. We're going to let the fans say what they want to. And that quickly went south. They also promised we're only going to have 4 yearly pay-per-views as opposed to WWE's 1 every month for a total of 12. Since then, they're slowly getting to WWE's level. As of this year, they will have a record 9 pay-per-views this year. And they're adding Wrestle Dynasty and Grand Slam next year.
Wow.
As pay-per-views. You're getting up there. Oh, and look, the picture of Tony Khan, he actually had a regular haircut.
Wow.
Look at that. Not the pencil neck man we know today. Another promise. AEW is not going to have writers because Tony Khan preferred to work directly with talent to distance itself from the soap opera style of WWE. Now, this past February, Tony Khan hired former WWE and soap opera writer Jennifer Pepperman back in February. Another promise they made was a sports-based product. Now you have essentially Timeless Tony Storm, who's an old school kind of character. Orange Cassidy, The Acclaimed, Dinner Debonair, a Mimosa Mayhem match, Roderick Strong's Adam character, Jake Hager's hat when that was a thing, Danhausen, the Dark Order, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, etc. They wanted to make a statement and set themselves away from WWE, and now they're slowly starting to become close to what WWE is, but honestly, a much worse version. Another promise. Tony Khan repeatedly said he did not want to be an on-screen character. But obviously, since then, he's been on TV so many times, and I believe his last appearance was when the Young Bucks hit him with a TK driver, leading him to wear that stupid-ass neck brace that we talked about on the draft. Jesus. Another promise, and I'm going to get too redundant, but there's 2 more, and then I'll say my piece. A smaller roster, because you can't pay every talented wrestler $100,000 because that's where WCW went wrong.
Yes.
Now its roster has nearly 200 wrestlers for the last 2 years. And you have to give them a good amount of money to come in because you brought in Mercedes Moné. Obviously, you've re-signed FTR, The Acclaimed, MJF's record contract. Like, I don't know how you keep all these people. Another one, quality over quantity. AEW has now started off with 2 hours of TV and 4 pay-per-views a year. Now they have the same amount of content as the WWE main roster. Even though most skip Rampage or Collision, and 9 pay-per-views a year at 12 to 15 matches each. Like, all that to say, what we're saying isn't just, oh, we hate AEW, stop shitting on them, hating on them. It's facts. We all remember when they had their big press conference, all their promises they made. And just examples of how they've gone back on it and how they're starting, I feel like, lose a lot of interest. And their ratings are just slowly going down, down, down. Like, we're not making it up. Those are a handful of more facts that I've given you to why AEW is not as good as it used to be. Because all these promises you've gone back on and things that were good. Like, you still show the, people's record, but it really doesn't mean anything anymore.
I agree. I actually passed up tickets to go to Dynamite.
There you go. My point exactly.
And I hate to say that because I've been to a lot of Dynamite shows and even Rampage and everything, but it just wasn't in my my heart to take the tickets. I
Yeah,
just
I mean,
I can't believe fully in the product right now.
yeah, and I mean, a couple of those things I didn't even think of, like, the ranking system. I forgot about that. It's been so long because they used to have it actively going, and now it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
Like, that was something that stood apart from everything, and you just don't have it anymore. So it's hard for me as a fan to buy in when you make all these promises and now you're not even delivering on them.
Yeah. And it's sometimes when you want to compete with your competitor, it over predecesses everything else. And that's what happened to WCW is when WCW was beating WWE in the Monday Night Wars, they were doing their own thing. Then once the tables turned, then they felt like they had to kick it into overdrive and start doing this weird stuff, having more shows and all that stuff to be able to compete with WWE. And
Right.
it didn't work for them. And then eventually Vince bought them and then it went away.
Yeah. All right, Brian, your turn. I've
Well, the
said my
first thing that
piece.
I want to do is want to give my biggest condolences. We lost a great one, Sid Vicious. I've just this one hurt a little bit. I have to admit, I watched Sid from the '80s all the way through, and loved him. Even back when he was tagging with Undertaker back in the day, um, he was always a presence, basically a Brock Lesnar presence everywhere that he went. And I will still never forget the day that he broke his ankle off the top rope.
I
And
I just thought about that. It's just
oh my lord, it's hard to watch it still. But I want to we all of us here at YRW want to give a big shout out to Sid Vicious's family. Again, this one hurt. It hurt, man. I've because you just being at my age and maybe people even a little bit older, we're seeing our heroes not last. And so that's why now in wrestling we've got to have new heroes. We have to have new people to look up to in the business because the people that we watched in the 80s, the late 70s, early 80s, they're going. I mean, they're passing, which I think Ric Flair will outlive everybody from the 70s and 80s, but that's beside the point. I feel like that they'll put him in some kind of like frozen state and they'll keep him alive like
he'll be
Austin Powers.
yeah, he'll be cryogenically frozen. Yeah, I just want to make one comment, and a month ago or so, he was interviewed. You probably saw it, and he was talking about how Vince wouldn't put him in the Hall of Fame, and he was hoping that maybe with Hunter in charge, maybe that would happen. And it's just sad to know he's not going to be able to be there at his own induction whenever that
Yeah,
ends up happening. Because
yeah,
I know Triple H, I know he's going to get those guys in who may not have had the chance with Vince, but it's just sad that he had hope a month ago and now he's no longer with us to see it.
yeah, yeah. And I do want to finish my rant with the a little bit more about TNA, and I just got to put the picture back up. Um, TNA right now to me is the hottest product that's going. That's a bold statement, I know. Bold statement for number 3. I mean, I guess AEW is still producing more than TNA. I guess we could probably check those numbers at some point,
It's
but
just, it's just Tony Khan's money. That's all it is.
yeah, yeah. But if you're not watching TNA right now, you need to start. This product is getting so much better, not just because of Joe Hendry, but because of the talent that they have. And the Emergence pay-per-view and being there live. I mean, I can watch Impact every Thursday and anything they put on YouTube and everything, but this product is so solid and the wrestling that is a part of this product is so solid. that it makes it so enjoyable. Not the fact that they got the Hardys, they got Ziggler, they got Dana Brooke, they've got Mike Santana from AEW, they've got Moose, they've got all these great stars, but it's also the X division, it's also the women's division. They've got some really great talent, and I think with this NXT and TNA mashup, that it's going to start putting more eyes again on TNA. Because I mean, let's face it, TNA used to be the number 2 company in all of wrestling back in the Aces and Eights and Hogan and Flair with Fortune and
Kurt
all
Angle,
that.
Samoa Joe, Main Event
Yes.
Mafia, all of them.
So it's going to go back to its glory days, and I feel like Joe Hendry has helped with that. But you've got the Hardys. I mean, the Hardys could probably go back to WWE right now and retire, but they're helping out a company of this stature. I mean, I felt more personable and like I was a real wrestling fan at this event than any event I've ever been at. I didn't feel like a number. I felt like that I was wanted there. And that's just a different atmosphere that I'm not used to. I'm just not used to that kind of atmosphere. But it was a great event. As you can see in the picture, we met Joe Hendry, and just such a top-notch guy. Cannot say that enough. The Hardys were super nice. Ash by Elegance was super nice. And so I'm very excited for where TNA is going to go.
Yeah, they've been cranking out great event after great event, and it's hard to kind of shove them aside and feel like, oh yeah, it's a one-off. Like, no, they've been doing this repeatedly, and the fact that WWE has struck a partnership with them, to me, that says something. They see the trajectory of where this is going, and they're like, hey, let's just make this even bigger.
Yeah.
So, again, love all wrestling. We say this at every show. Love all wrestling. We may be critical of one brand more than the other, but at the end of the day, we love it. And we wouldn't be critical of it if we didn't love it, because we see so much opportunity.
Yes.
In certain areas. So just please remember that.
Well, you have basically 22 minutes till Raw starts. You need to go and check out Raw tonight. We will be back with you on Sunday at 11 a.m. And we will make sure that you're telling all your friends and family about YRW and that this is your show. We do this for you all, and we cannot express enough of how great it is to be back after some busy time. But 2 things. Tune into YRW every week and believe in Joe Hendry.
I mean, I can't say much more than that. Those are 2 big ones. And I feel like now that you mentioned him, you said his name, I think we need to go out with Joe Hendry's music.
Let's do it. Guys, we will see you on Sunday at 11 a.m. for my broadcast partner, Yankee Tommy. I am Rebel Brian, and you have just been beat up again with another episode of Yankee Rebel Wrestlecast. We'll see you Sunday.